Anthony Albanese's hopes of securing a trade exemption from US tariffs on Australian steel and aluminium have hit a hurdle. President Donald Trump's senior trade advisor, Pete Navarro, has rejected the idea. He says Australia had a verbal agreement with the US to ease up on the amount of aluminium we're sending to the US, which we haven't honoured. The 25% tariffs are due to come into effect next month.
Australia is just killing our aluminum market, and the President Trump says, no, we're not doing that anymore.
Arthur Sinodinos was Australia's ambassador to the United States and is with us now. Arthur, is there any substance to those claims that Australia is killing the American aluminium market?
Not at all. We make only a very small contribution to the steel and aluminium going into the US. There was an agreement about restraining volumes to a certain level, and the idea was that we would monitor what the companies were doing, and if the companies were getting out of line, we would let them know so they could pull themselves back.
Arthur, tell us about that agreement. It happened around the time you were ambassador. Who was behind the deal, and what did we say we'd do?
Well, I inherited whatever the understanding was, and the understanding was along the lines that I mentioned, that we would restrain the volumes to certain historical levels. And the idea was that the responsibility for making sure those levels continued to be met was with the companies, and the idea was that the Australian government would let the companies know if the levels looked like they were being exceeded. Now, this was all very informal. Nothing, as far as I can recall, was on paper. I never saw anything on paper, but that was the understanding. And there were a couple of times when I spoke with people in the administration when they were raising issues in my time about where the levels were at. But certainly it was an issue to which we were sensitive.
Come on, Arthur. We're trying to narrow down the ambiguity here. Are we talking about Joe Hockey or Scott Morrison or a bit of both? Because Turnbull says it wasn't him. Is this a sort of Joe Hockey on the golf course with Trump sort of situation that we're talking about?
No, not at all. This would have been something that the Australian government, the embassy, everyone would have been in on. Look, I don't think there's any particular issue with this. It's clear that this was a way of avoiding having tariffs put on us, and that's what we did, and we did our best to meet that requirement.
Arthur, is this going to damage our relationship with the United States?
These things are always awkward, but, you know, governments, prime ministers, presidents are in the job of protecting their national interest. Trump will know that we will do everything we can to protect our national interest. He has regard for Australia, but, you know, he has a general policy which he promised to the American people. We respect that. He's trying to carry that out, but we have a job to protect the Australian people.
So what advice would you give Albo and Kevin Rudd, for that matter, in dealing with Donald Trump?
I think the best piece of advice to anybody dealing with Trump and the administration is just be on the front foot, be confident, go in there with constructive proposals, don't take a back foot, because these are people in the White House now who are used to rough and tumble. They've come from like real estate development, private business, where they're used to having contretemps over deals. They get to a bottom line. They all sort of agree on it, then they have a drink and they move on.
Arthur, you've had some dealings with Donald Trump. How do we go about resolving this now? Because I think it's at all like a big misunderstanding. I think we're talking about aluminium and he's talking about a product I've never heard of called aluminum.
Well, this is right. We're divided by a common language.
Exactly.
And I think what we should do is send you to the United States to try and resolve this, because clearly you've got to the bottom of what the problem really is.
Thank you, Arthur. I would love to go to America. Vegas, here I come.
Arthur, you've never actually met Sam Taunton, have you?
No, not Vegas. Not Vegas. Mar-a-Lago for you, mate. Mar-a-Lago now. That's the centre of the universe.
I'll get my golf clubs out. This has worked out very well.
Arthur, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Great to see you all.
Mar-a-Lago Sam.
I know, I'm taking the next week off.
That political science degree is finally getting run.
I know.
A contretemps.
Well, what's that? I don't know what that is.
You nodded along.
Yeah, I know. I do that a lot on this show. Have you been paying attention? I often go, good point. I have no idea what you're talking about.